The Portonaccio Sarcophagus is a striking example of Roman funerary art. Its front side portrays one of the most realistic engagements between Roman cavalry and barbarians during the imperial period. The sarcophagus was found in 1931 near the Via Tiburtina, close to Portonaccio in the eastern suburbs of Rome. Based on stylistic analysis and historical context, it is dated to around 180 AD. The large marble sarcophagus features intricate bas-relief carvings on the front, sides and band of the lid. The intense, bloody and savage melee is vividly sculpted on its front panel. It provides a glimpse into the tactics and equipment employed by Roman legions at the time. It depicts a charge of Roman horsemen in the company of foot soldiers against Germanic tribes. A faceless knight dominates at the center of the scene. His identity is debatable, and so are the reasons why his face was never carved. More on that later in the video. He is leading the charge at the culminating moment of the assault. Interestingly, he and his lieutenant wield weapons rather unusual for equites that could be described as long battle sticks. This detail could suggest that the sarcophagus was indeed prepared for a specific person, who preferred this kind of weapon over the more popular ones. If the sculptor had prepared the sarcophagus with generic scenes of battle against barbarians in the hope of finding a client later, then he most likely would have depicted the main character using the standard, elongated spada, cavalry sword, or the lance that others in his company employ. Below the general, the infantry fights hand-to-hand against the barbarians, who are horribly crushed to the bottom of the sarcophagus. A final expression of anguish marks barbarian faces everywhere, as they seem to succumb before the might of the Roman imperial forces. Pairs of figures of an older man and a woman stand beneath trophies at either end of the main face, uninvolved in the battle. The barbarian at right is probably Suebian, based on his hairstyle, a Suebian knot. The barbarian on the left is either a High German or a Sarmatic Jazyges. The main scene may have been idealized for purposes of composition and theme to please an obviously prominent client. It was meant to portray the most important moment in his career and the greatest achievement for which he wished to be remembered. The bas-reliefs on the sides of the sarcophagus show events subsequent to the clash. On one side, barbarian prisoners crossing a river led by Roman soldiers along a boat bridge. On the other side, the chieftains submitting to the Roman officials. Other significant scenes from the life of the deceased are presented on the lid band. From left to right we see his birth, marriage in the center, and leniency towards the barbarians at the end. His face and the faces of his mother and wife are not carved. There is one more strange detail in the depiction of his mother. Her right foot doesn't look human. Considering the remarkable skill of the sculptor who created the artwork, it is unlikely to be a mistake, but rather a deliberate choice. Unless it was left unfinished, it has to have some meaning. On either end of the lid is a large head of a bearded man. The two heads are very similar. it's speculative, but they possibly represent the two-faced Roman god Janus, who was the god of gates, transitions and time, but also of all beginnings and endings. One of the heads is looking into the past, the other is looking into the future. It is somewhat of a mystery why the faces of the officer, his wife and his mother were never completed. Perhaps he died somewhere in the provinces, far away from Rome, before the sarcophagus was finished, and it was presumably never used. So who was this sarcophagus made for? Some scholars claim that we can make an educated guess about the officer's identity by looking at some decorations on the sarcophagus, especially the military insignia. They point to the boar of the 1st Legion Italica and the eagle of the 4th Legion Flavia Felix, which allows us to connect the sarcophagus to Aulus Julius Pompilius Piso. During the Marcomannic Wars around 170 AD, Emperor Marcus Aurelius appointed him the commander of 2 legions, the 1st Legion Italica and the 4th Legion Flavia Felix, as well as all associated auxiliary units. Later in his life, Aulus Julius Pompilius Piso became the governor of the province of Numidia and also the commander of the 3rd Legion Augusta. So even if the sarcophagus was intended for him, it is possible that his ashes were not interred inside it, but rather buried in North Africa, maybe in the ancient city of Quicul, where he was also a patron, but there is no definitive evidence. The Portonaccio Sarcophagus can be viewed at the National Roman Museum Palazzo Massimo alle Terme in Rome.